Hello, good evening and welcome. It is Monday evening at 8 p.m. in the United Kingdom, and we'd love to know where you are joining from all over the world. Just type it into the comments and say hello to us. My name is Theo Van Dor. I'm the executive producer of Time of the Sixth Sun. We've got Nikki Luna Williams, the writer, director, producer of this amazing movie and series. And our guest this evening is Leela Hutchison, who is joining us from the US. Thank you so much, Leela, for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Theo.
So great to see you.
Nikki, great to see you, my old friend.
It's so nice to have you with us, Leela, and thanks so much for offering to come on to talk about what I'm sure is going to be a fascinating talk about these incredible crystal caves that you got the privilege of visiting. And we can't wait to hear all about that. And as people are coming in, I'm just going to bring up this slide, which shows where you can find out more about Leela. So there's two Facebook pages. Leela Hutchison G.G, facebook.com/Giant Crystals of Mexico. You can also, we're going to talk about Leela's books that's available on Amazon. And there's also two websites, leelasgems.com and thecrystalgiants.com, which I'm going to, I'll put all the links into the comments. And if this is the first time you're ever joining us here at Time of the Sixth Sun, well, we've got a movie and an 8-part documentary series that is currently available to watch for free. So if you go to timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com and share your name and email address, and if you're already on our email list, you need to do that again. Go to timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com, and then it will register you for the next launch that's coming up. We also have a donate button on our timeofthesixthsunmovie.com page, which I'll add the link to the comments. If you're really enjoying these free broadcasts that we're doing twice a week on a Monday and a Thursday evening in UK time, then we'd love any financial contributions that you would feel that you'd like to give. And otherwise, you can just share these live videos with others and help us spread the word about Time of the Sixth Sun. And again, that timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com address, if you can just post that everywhere for us, it really does help us, because it means we don't then have to run marketing costs to get our message out and to get these messages that Luna has been trusted with from the indigenous, the spiritual leaders around the planet, to as many people as possible for free. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We've got people in from Florida, from Pittsburgh, from Belgium, from United Kingdom, from Mexico, from Arizona, another one in the UK, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Germany, Amsterdam, North Devon, Rotterdam, Northern Ireland, Southern Central New Mexico. So these are the people joining us already. So thanks so much for being with us tonight. So
Wow.
Luna, over to you, lovely.
That's quite an audience. Well, I'm actually going to hand over to Leela first, because you're going to set the geoenergetics for us today, my darling.
Yes, I'd like to do that. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody from my heart to yours for being here today, so you can receive some of the energetic downloads that you might receive from this conversation with Nikki, of a long-time friendship we have had since 2008 when we first met. It felt like a homecoming, and we've been good friends ever since. And before we start with the amazing story about the mysterious giant selenite crystals, I just wanted to share with everyone what is happening tomorrow, and it's starting today. We have Pluto and Jupiter conjunct in Capricorn at 24 degrees. And they're both retrograde, and we also have a Mercury in Cancer. Perfect time to have this meeting. Very first time. And also, so I want you to think about that, just that with the Mercury retrograde, usually what that means is it's a very good time to revisit old friends and things that have happened in the past. Not a good time to initiate new projects, but to finish up something that was started a long time ago. So this is a very potent, energetic time. Sun is in Cancer, Mercury retrograde, and also the amazing Pluto conjunct Jupiter, which really means a lot of power for transformation and awakening. Saying that, I want to say for the first time in 18 years, this is the first YouTube interview I've ever done. I've never allowed that before, but my heart is with you and the Time of the Sixth Sun, which is on my shelf over here with a few other things in my books.
Beautiful.
I feel like it's time to really share much deeper on a public scale, which I have never done before. I do it in private groups and in different lectures, depending on who the audience may be.
Thank you so much for trusting us, Leela. I'm very moved by that.
You're welcome, Nikki. Tail.
Let's make it a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So let's jump in. I was just saying to you, Leela, that meeting you changed my whole understanding and perspective of Mother Earth. It really turned something around for me in a very deep way. So I want to start with a photograph that you showed me of the land above the Naica caves. So just the land before you go down into the caves, because it was totally nondescript, I remember. Dry, scrappy bit of land. You would never imagine that such beauty lay below it. What was your first impressions when you drove up there?
Well, Nikki, as you know, I was born and raised in the Southwest. So just to give, to know yourself is to know where you are. So a place is very important. So I was born in El Paso, Texas. And as you move and travel south, 250 miles south, the landscape is inside the Chihuahuan Desert. It is the largest desert in North America, and it is the third largest in the world. That's how it's an amazing, huge, I think it's 275,000 square miles, something like that. Some crazy, huge, not 275,000. I'll get back to you on that. It left my mind for a second. Okay, so what I want to say about that is that this desert is loaded with minerals. Loaded. And so when people, I'm sure I'm talking to people from southern New Mexico, they know exactly what I'm talking about. These are many mountains that are nondescript, that have very little brush on them. Some have a few pine trees depending on the altitude, like up in the Guadalupe Mountains. But basically what you're looking at is just bands and bands of minerals in a nondescript desert that goes on forever. It used to be part of an inlet sea, and that is one of the reasons why there were so many fossils and so much water that had created an aquifer below. So when we drove up on the El Camino Real from the city of Chihuahua in the state of Chihuahua, and we headed southeast to Naica, which in the Tarahumara language means place of shade, we stopped at the juncture of the road to Naica and the El Camino Real, and we looked at these nondescript mountains. And it was hard to believe that this is the most prolific lead, silver, and zinc mine in Mexico. Yeah. In Mexico. So if you can imagine, Mexico is known for its resources, and this has been the most producing of silver and lead in the whole country of Mexico. So already you can see we're pulling in some alchemy here. We're talking about a lot of water. We're talking about a lot of minerals. We're talking about an alchemy and an exchange of crystals, right? Because crystalline water, things are happening. But I never knew, had no idea, one, that this was a 200-year-old working mine, nor that the largest crystals in the world lay beneath my feet.
Wow. So you drove up there, and tell us about the dangerous conditions, how prepared you were for those, and whether you were aware of what it was like. I believe there were were there miners who discovered it originally?
Well, So what had happened is, we have to go back to the history of this again. It's always been known as a place of heat because of a pinch of magma that had cooled, if you can call that cooling, that created the crystals. And the first crystals were found at 400 feet, 120 meters, and it was called the Cave of Swords in 1910. And geologists from all over the world came to see these blades that were only 3 feet tall, to understand how water floods and recedes created these mysterious crystals. I don't even know if they had it figured out back then in 1910, but it was a worldwide phenomenon then. and many geologists knew about it. What happened was in April of 2000, the Delgado brothers, Eloy and Javier, were employees of the Pineal Mining Company out of Mexico City. And they received their instructions that day that they were to start to create more of the tunnels. As you can imagine, this mine goes down to about 2,400 feet. And so they auger in and create these tunnels to where they can get to access to where the minerals lie. So little did they know, as they were boring the tunnels and they were creating a new tunnel system, that if you can think about how Mother Earth creates like Swiss cheese, like air bubbles, right? Air pockets. So there's all kinds of air pockets. And to think that these guys were taking equipment that looked like a piston. And so they hit the piston against this wall. And when they punched in, and they thought it was a solid mass of bedrock, but it wasn't. What they had was like a cave, but it was a bubble. And on the other side of that, as they got off the equipment and took an old wooden ladder, which I have all these rare images of, and they walked up this ladder and squeezed through a very tiny opening. And on the other side of that, just completely blew their mind. There was no water in there. It wasn't a solid mass of a vein of lead, zinc, and silver. What they saw were, with their miner's helmet, was like shards of light, like a mirror that had broken. And because selenite has striations of like fiber optics, and this is part of what I think, Teo, that you created, and you, Nikki, is telling us that this is our legacy. It belongs to us. It's part of us from our galactic families. Okay, so these shards of light really reflected the fiber optic light striations inside some of these selenite and satin spar crystals, and others were reflected. So that blew their mind. They had no idea. And the size of them and the scope of them just was beyond belief. They had no idea.
We're going to get onto that. So just before we go, your role, what was your role within this exploration or expedition team?
Okay, so to correct a couple of things, I was the first American woman to be on the very first expedition into these crystal caves inside the Pineal working mine. And because I had a background, I've always been an athlete anyway, and I grew up in the Southwest, so hiking and running, playing around on rocks has always been part of my life. I had a dirt bike when I was 13 years old, and I've always been somebody that felt very comfortable around climbing and rocks. And as I got older, I learned how to rock climb. And then as I got into more of my contribution to helping the Tarahumara Indians, that is how I made the connection of an invitation to be on this expedition team. Okay. And so this is all in my book, Journey into the Giant Selenite Crystal Caves of Mexico, and we'll show a picture later on. But all these spiritual stories and my personal growth are in this book with the rare colored images. So everything I'm saying today, they can also read much more about that inside. Anyway, the invitation was, we'd love for you to come, and here's what we need you to do. We need you to wear this special equipment clothing, which was, it was designed for hostile environments, whether you went to the North Pole, Antarctica, or in the hot jungles of the Amazon, or in the most hostile environment in the world for a miner to work in, which is underground 1,000 feet. So what we want you to do is to wear these particular clothing to help wick away the moisture and the heat, not the heat, but mostly the moisture, so that you could breathe. And here are the conditions. It's 100% humidity. It was 128 degrees Fahrenheit at the time that I went down there, and that was only 8 months after they were discovered. When they opened the bubble inside bedrock, it was already at 135, 134 degrees.
Wow, Leela, can I just say that's about 56
Celsius. That's right.
For those phenomenal European and British amongst us.
Correct. Thank you. I try to speak in Celsius and in meters for that.
I remember in Australia being in 45 degrees heat, and it felt like hitting a brick wall. Literally, it was phenomenal.
Literally.
I can't imagine what that was like.
Well,
So it's known as the most hostile environment on the planet.
Correct. And so here was my only warning. I just moved to Sedona from a spiritual guidance. Okay. Something said, you need to leave Northern California. And I thought going back to Sedona, because I grew up 20 years in Arizona, that that would be a good place for me. But it was really about me getting on the road. And what I call it, I intersected my destiny. So when I encountered the person who had these images and said, why don't you just hold on to these, and I'm going to be back. I'm going to go down and film more of these crystals. When I was ready to return them, that's when I received the invitation. And here was the caveat. Look, I know you can do this, but you need to know the conditions, which we just explained. The 100% humidity and extremely hot. It's never been explored before because it's too hot for anyone to stay in there long enough to do it. But I think you can do it because I know your rock climbing background, and I know your love, and I know your passion. And I love that country down there because it is the home of the Tarahumaras, one of the most mysterious running elite indigenous tribes in the world, some of the fastest runners in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's much to be said about that. There's a book called Barefoot Running.
Yeah, I've read that book. It's amazing. Amazing.
Okay. That was based on his inspiration by those Tarahumara Indians.
Yeah.
Too.
And
that's so cool.
They drink this local beer and chia seeds.
Yeah, the chia seeds.
And they were saying if there's only one food left on earth, what you'd want to eat is chia seeds, because it just gives them the energy for a run for miles and miles and miles. And then they brought all the American athletes over to race against them, and nobody could beat them.
Nobody can beat them, and they stop at the water stations and they smoke a cigarette. Okay, while the other guys are doing electrolytes, these guys who have their legs are like tree stumps. So this is that's cool that I'm so glad you brought this in, because my heart is with that. First of all, Tara, like green Tara, we're talking an earth goddess, okay? Just the beginning of the name. All right, the Tarahumara, which really means in their language, I think first humans in Mexico.
Wow.
Right? This northern indigenous tribe. Now, this is a key piece, and I'm writing my second book about this as well. But this is cool, Theo, because what happened was in 1997, 4 years before I was going to have that opportunity to be in the Crystal Caves, I met Peter Essex, who is a National Geographic photographer, who was down there right on the cliffs overlooking the Copper Canyon. And we were watching a ball game between two different villages of the Tarahumara. It was my first encounter of them. We sat out there and watched them. Nikki, they had sandals. These sandals, what they do, it was goat's leather they actually glued rubber tires underneath that. So it just had a little thong between the big toe. And then it's called a pelota, which is it's an iron wood ball, very, very hard. And they would kick that ball with their bare toes. Okay. And they would do this around. Here's Peter Essex. All right. So we're meeting them and we're watching these guys, and their clothing are this Muslim. They look like diapers. It's just, they have these beautiful kind of cowboy shirts on, like a ropers with buttons on the side. And then they'll have a scarf around them. This is very rare to see an opportunity like this, with these shorts kind of on, with these giant legs. And they're known to run 100 miles at a time. They can even run a deer down to the point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're getting the the energy from the crystal beds below.
Well, now this is really important because there's a whole lot to connect to that. I think you're absolutely right. First of all, there was a guy he was an anthropologist, I believe, an explorer, Carl Lumholtz, back at the turn of the century. And at the turn of the century, we had a lot more access to images, pictures. It was even in the New York Times. Giant bones were found in Copper Canyon. And there were stories of giants by the Tarahumara Indians. Okay. So we know that giants, we've heard these stories before. I'm sure some of the people that you have interviewed, that they lived underground. Some of them were in caves. because we found bones all over the place,
Yeah.
but nobody talks about that. With Michael Tellinger,
yeah.
my friend.
Another good friend.
Yeah. So there's part of it too. And I really do think the Tarahumaras knew about those massive crystals. I think they found them all over the place. They didn't find massive crystals, but on the surface, the way that all happened, just to kind of tie this around, and we can get back to any questions you have about that. But when these miners, okay, you got to think, first of all, the People's Highway was called the El Camino Real, and it was really the Spaniards who came into Mexico, into Mexico City. And so they are the ones who established Santa Fe, New Mexico. So this was the long road. And how did they know about that? Because obviously other tribes and animals and other people had taken this road. They made these paths, and they would stop with their horses. In 1794, they stopped with their horses at the base of the Naica Mountains because there were some trees there and there was a stream of water, and then started to look and they saw flecks of silver. See, so before you can ever dig deep, you got to have some indication that there's something there. And there was not the technology we have before. So they started digging. It took them over 100 years before they could even start to really get into mining. Right? That's how long they put an effort into it. Pancho Villa knew all about it. Okay, they knew about the crystals. It was named.
I can't wait to read your next book. I'm wrapped. You've got me sold already.
It's pretty fascinating, this area. There's not much has been researched, and I've spent 18 years of my life really working and dedicating. And what money I had has always gone into another trip out into the Southwest.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you're at the caves. And
yes.
And for our viewers, like I said on the flyer, we've all seen the images in the National Geographic magazine, with their breathing equipment and the lights and the air purification, cooling systems, and their orange jumpsuits. But you guys went down there with nothing except headlamps on your heads.
No, we didn't.
First of all, just because I want to really have the audience or our viewers really imagine what that was that you went through. So it was pitch dark. You were going to be climbing crystals that must have been very jagged and sharp, I imagine, in these intense conditions. So what went through your mind as you first went into the caves?
We've had so many people join us since you told the story. So Leela was saying that it was 128 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 55 degrees centigrade. So people who have just joined us understand where Leela's about to tell us about this experience of going down into these caves.
Well done.
Yeah, well done. So the advice was, beware. It's really hot down there, and there's going to be no light, and 100% humidity. But I think you can do it. And I remember I said, "Well, give me 24 hours," and I hung up the phone. I was in Sedona, and I just got hired at a grocery store, and I had to quit because, of course, I couldn't let an opportunity like this. I cried my eyes out because I was terrified. As soon as I got off the phone, I said, I'm so scared, but how can I not do this? Everything in my body had said, you have to do this. And the reason it did that is back in October when I first moved to Sedona, I started to read some very interesting material by the Ascended Masters, going in their finer bodies into inner earth, where jewels, precious metals, and precious crystals, right? And semi-precious crystals were found. Okay. And I won't get into all that, but that was almost like precognitive, right? It was starting to get things happening for me. And I already had seen the pictures of giant selenite crystals in October, but now this is January. So now what happens is that we gather at the Palace of the Sun. I think that was the name of the hotel in Chihuahua City. We meet all of our experts on the team. My job was to crawl around because I'd been a rock climber over these crystals. All I had was tennis shoes on and shorts and a shirt. But when we got to the top of the surface of the mine, we had the chief of security go with us, because even there had been thefts and they didn't understand, even though then we had a role to play, which was they had asked us, please, can you take photographs for us? Because we can't. We don't have the technology. We don't even know how to do this, because every time we take a photograph, it films up with water and malfunctions. So it was our job to explore and to take as many photographs as possible.
What sort of cameras did you have to protect from that moisture?
Well, even in 2000, as you know, we were using digitized cameras.
Yeah.
But the ones that work, and this is something for all you guys out there, if any of you are collectors, don't just hang on to your 35 millimeter cameras, because these are analog. Is that telling us something than digital?
Yeah.
Right. We work better with analog. And so with a dual lens that was a buffer, we could filter out after a minute or two the humidity and take a few shots before it would render you couldn't see it, sightless. So we would use a couple of cameras to do that, and they were 35 millimeter film. Okay, so that's how that started. So when I got there, the first thing they did was put us in a dually truck, had some Gatorade in the back. Alejandro was the chief of security then, and he took our team in this pickup truck. And you got to think about it now. It's winter time. It's January, and I'm in winter clothes because it's in the desert. It might get warm during the day, but I got to tell you, at night, you probably know this, it gets really cold, especially in winter. So now it's about 7 a.m. and it's still pretty cold up, but we go into the locker room, different locker rooms, and I replace these clothes with these shorts and a sleeveless t-shirt. I'm going, wow, I don't know, it's hard to believe I'm going to be hot down there. It's so cold up here. We jump in the back of the truck, and as soon as we go in through the main doors and main gates into the underground mine, we drive like we're auguring down, and it gets hotter and hotter. These poor mineral miners, I should say, they cool the tunnels to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? And they do that because of an air shaft that they bore through the Naica mountain and put a fan on top. That's the only way to get it cooled down to 102 in the tunnels. But inside the bubble of bedrock, because it was sealed, it was 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. So they gave me a couple of knee pads. And for me, I'm somebody that I need to feel and touch things in the dark. I need to use my fingers and hands. I didn't want to use any gloves. And I've been doing massage and body work since 1997 and continue to do hands-on healing today. So my hands are really, really important antennas of information for me. So when we pulled up the knee pads and we drove down to the first location, we had to climb up a very rickety wooden ladder. And I had a miner's helmet on and a battery pack. And literally, like Mother Earth, just had to go through like a birthing canal. It was very tight. One person was too heavy, could not squeeze through it, so did not get to go in that part of it. We didn't have any respirators, and we didn't have any vests that cooled us or kept us cool. So as soon as I got through and I popped through on the other side, what happens is the heat, I was hit by a massive wall of heat. It was completely black in there. And all I had was a tiny miner's helmet. So what happens is the heart now starts to beat faster and faster because it's signaling the brain saying it's getting too hot and we've got to cool down. We got to create some sweat so that you cool your body down so your brain doesn't swell and you go unconscious. And now the heart's beating extremely fast, but there's no way to cool off because it's 100% humidity. So there's no way to cool down. You're just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Your body temperature is going up and up. I believe we were in there for at least 42 minutes. 42. And it could have been mind over matter. but I believe that we were protected the night before. We were in the Palace of the Sun, and I had a dream that a white owl had come to me and said, come, with her wings, and said, come. I knew we were going to be okay. I knew it. It was such a conviction of truth in my heart that we would be safe. So when we got into the first cave and I started to popped out, the first thing I saw was a massive solid wall of crystal. It was flanged of waterfall. So it was like these steps that you could take, but you couldn't step anywhere. You had to crawl and climb. And that's when I first saw the very first pylon, which is a very huge beam that probably weighed about 60 tons.
Wow.
And even in this place, these crystals were at least 500,000 years old.
Wow.
So there, yeah. And there's so much to say about that. And I'm going to say it right now because we'll say it again. I believe that there's many of these crystal clusters that are inside the earth. And these are the legacy that our family has given us. Now, here's what's happened. Why since 2000? I think everybody knows we're waking up. And what are we waking up to? We've had our memories erased, and they're coming back. And our indigenous elders have been our wisdom keepers that have helped us more than anybody for a long time, because they've kept it going. They knew, but for most of us, we've been entirely asleep, and we've been deliberately mind swiped. So we've had amnesia, and now we're waking up. And I believe
do you believe that's why they've revealed themselves or they've been hidden and cloistered for so long?
I do. I do. So also it was the turn of a new millennia, right? I mean, the year 2000 is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it was a whole turn of that. And I don't know about you guys. Do you remember? I know you did, Nikki. You had a burning passion about this tale. Of course, we didn't know each other. But there was such a race in 2008. And it started in 2001 when we had that whole Y2K scare, right? They thought that the clocks were going to just shut down everything and the grid would collapse and we'd have to live off the grid. But there was this ramping up of energy. And this energy was, we had a deadline. And that was 2012. All the indigenous elders told us that some major shift was going to happen. And we all felt so excited about it. Like we just felt like every day, like what's going to be revealed next that's really going to open up our crown chakras, and our third eyes and, have this thing happen. How do we get the collective consciousness here? How do we get everybody on board so we can help tip the scales and make this happen? Right, Nikki?
I mean, the last 2 decades have been extraordinary if you think about it.
Yeah.
I remember being told that there would come a time, I was told by an energy healer in New Zealand, there will come a time when people will literally, the frequency will rise so high, people who haven't done the work to lift their vibration will be vomiting in the streets. And I remember thinking, gosh, I was so naive back then, but I remember thinking, no, that doesn't sound right, but I can believe it now,
Yeah, we've seen so much. Yeah. We're really becoming awake and remembering our past and remembering our star families.
Yeah.
Remembering we came from the stars, remembering we're star seeds and we came back here to finish what we started a long time ago. And what is that? Are we to finish? We're here to help promote the human evolution. That's what we're here.
Leela.
Yeah. And these crystals help in this thing as well, right?
So I remember you in our original interview saying that this awesome vision that was before you, I asked you to describe it, and you said it was like traveling to Superman's fortress of solitude, a crystal cathedral, I think you said.
Absolutely.
So just describe how big they are, these pylons.
Well, all right. So they're approximately, and again, I'm going to speak in feet instead of meters, but we could do that. 15 meters, 40 feet.
Yeah, we talk feet.
And then their width was 6 to 8 feet. And maybe, Teo, you want to show some pictures? I might have given you one of some of them, how massive they were in the larger crystal cave. Yeah. Wow. And you could see there's another thing here that we're looking at. Do you see the translucent quality? These are some of the purest selenite crystals in the world. They're almost completely, and they're really solid and dense. So it has a mass to it. In fact, I have a piece from Naica. While Teo's showing that, excuse me, let me grab it. It's right next to me. Hold on.
I mean, Luna,
do you want to run through the photos, Teo?
Look at this. Well, because I'd like Leela to talk us through the different photos. So just look at the size of that selenite compared to the size of you.
Yeah, there you go. And you can see, I think for your viewers and audience, can you just imagine this light encodement? And I'm not the only one that thinks that these are crystals that hold what have been perceived as ascension codes. They hold data. Selenite crystals transmit and receive information.
Yeah.
They're like Gaia's original cell phone towers. Okay, so Teo, there you go. That's it. That's the one on the left. This was the larger cave where you're seeing me stand, and the one sitting was the first one we went into, was the Cave of Dreams. And this was considered the shark's teeth. That's on the right-hand side.
Extraordinary. It really is like, it's extraordinary how they are literally defying gravity and at all angles, from floor to ceiling and ceiling to floor, it looks like.
Exactly. Well, just think about it. It was just a mineral-rich liquid.
Wow.
So once the temperature dropped below 136 degrees, then they formed the selenite crystals, the gypsum.
Right.
So gypsum is the family name of these crystals, and selenite is the most highly crystallized version. And Teo, go back to that one. It shows you where I was talking to you about the rickety ladder. See that?
Oh, yeah.
See? And so it looks like that's the hole that they punched in because they were getting ready to do another tunnel. But that didn't go very far. It looks like it's a large opening, but as you went just a little bit further, then that's when you had to squeeze through like a birthing canal. And you can even see out here, these crystals are all occluded. You're looking at bedrock of limestone, and you can see that just even a little bit of reflection of light. Look how it illuminates everything.
Yeah. Gosh, you can see the sweat pouring off you as well. You must have lost about a stone in weight.
Yeah, about 5 pounds of water weight, and we had to cinch up our battery packs. But you see where the knee pads did no good. They're not on my knees anymore.
Yeah.
And Teo, if you'll switch back, I'll show to live version of this. I'm going to show you the piece I have. This is, if you can see this, I think you can.
Yeah. Just keep turning it in the light. Lovely.
I will do that. And this is, see how solid this is?
Yeah.
This is really, really solid selenite. Wow. And this is like, I only was allowed to have 2 pieces, and
that's amazing.
I took this one.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, and you can see my fingers behind it, right? You could.
And that's what you were climbing on. I mean, they're just massive.
Well, let's talk about the consciousness of this. You see, these are like laminate sheets. So they lay down layer by layer by layer. So they're encoded. And it's also, what happened was the United States military acquired a selenite deposit because before safety plate glass was invented, they used selenite for the windows in their B-52 bombers. Oh. And you go, like, now why would they do that? It's because you can puncture it, but you cannot penetrate it.
Yeah.
Okay? So that would stop those bullets. And so the pilots could use the selenite windows to navigate as they fly.
Yeah.
Until safety plate glass was invented.
Yeah. That's amazing. I remember you holding some of it up for me before, and it does look like a pane of glass, literally, when you get a small square of it.
Window selenite, yeah.
I remember you saying, and I think this is one of the pieces we have in the film, So you saying it was like Superman's
Fortress of Solitude.
There you go. So it's like it literally does look like an amazing film set of a superhero film. Totally.
Totally.
In the film, you said, so that experience was a deeply birthing experience. And what I could hear was this amazing hum. I felt like I was in the center of the universe, and I could literally hear God's language of light and sound. I get goosebumps even reading that.
Oh,
Tell us
Nikki.
about how that, because you are surrounded by pure consciousness.
I believe that. So one of the things I did, I just came back from doing ceremony off the grid and prayers over this solstice, this very important window of time we're in. So that water is life. Right? It's because of water that we have life.
Yeah.
Completely. When I was inside that cave, what I felt was, first of all, I felt like there were eyes in there. I felt like something was watching. Right?
And
because
was it benevolent presence?
Well, again, because my heart was beating so fast, and I really had to use all of my wit and focus to stay safe and navigate my body over these crystals.
Yeah.
I was astounded. I didn't really know what I was seeing until I saw the images in film later.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was all revealed to me.
Yeah.
But as I said, because of the white owl that came to me the night before, I really did feel like there was guardians, but I also felt like sentient consciousness was in those crystals.
Wow. Did you get any messages? Did you download anything, do you feel?
Well, it took 18 years to download.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's still not done. It's just like, I didn't even know what selenite was when I went in there, Nikki.
Leela, let's bring you this question because it's perfect timing for it from Belinda. She says, what effect did the selenite have on you physically and spiritually since it has a high vibration?
All right, I will tell you this. Not only did I hear the hum, but I felt, and we'll get into those microbes later, but I did feel a consciousness. So if you can think of this, of that kind of heat on your blood crystals, I mean, it felt like my blood was literally boiling, right? It just purged.
Wow.
So, because selenite works with the stellar gateway, 36 inches above the head, it's like a doorway to the crown. I really felt like it just kind of popped me open. It changed the complete course of my life.
Yeah.
I was just curious about these things, but I didn't understand what was happening to me
at the time. Yeah.
There's no possible way. It's taken years of a lot of deep work.
These very hot, warm inner climates. I mean, I know with the Bosnian pyramids as well, they have a very high level of negative ions, very, very healing. So in addition, the fact that it was an old working silver mine and the antibiotic and the qualities of the silver. Wow.
Exactly. I didn't think about that. That's a really good connection about the silver. Because it's,
and even zinc, we know that zinc opens up our cells. So,
wow, yeah, very interesting. I believe that the water and the crystals and the metals, they all sing. That's the alchemy, the magic I'm talking about. They sing to each other, and they help.
Did you do a recording
inside the caves?
Yeah.
No, Nikki, it took everything just to stay alive and present.
Sure. I was thinking there were other people with you.
Nobody took a recording. It was just
that'd be amazing.
This
just
is a
to
great
get out.
question. Leela, did your voices echo and resonate, or was the atmosphere so dense that they absorbed the sound?
Completely absorbed everything. In fact, what happened was that because it was such a challenging situation, it was even hard to take a focus outside of yourself, because all you could do, it was like a sense of being completely trapped. There was no running to get away from anywhere. And if there was an injury, nobody was going to come quickly to take a gurney and pick you up and take you out of there. It was impossible. So it was all survival. everything. So all I could do, and thank God I had enough training just to breathe. So I just tried to slow my heartbeat down and just breathe and say, it's going to be okay. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. And you can do this.
Amazing. So I remember you also saying, because I've taken quite a bit from our old interview to save time, and I remember you saying that as you looked up, the pylons were connected to the matrix. I think it was what you said. Can you explain that to us a bit further?
Sure. Well, those crystals, they kind of defy gravity, because it's, again, if you got to think of about the bubble is like a pot that held water.
Yeah.
And as the water precipitated and dried out as it left, because again, we're talking about, well, we should get into that aquifer. Once it dried out, you could see where the crystals were attached to the walls, and the walls were iron oxide.
Wow.
So there's images where they're attached to the top at all angles.
Yeah.
So you can see that. Yes, Teo, that's a good one to the left.
Yeah.
And they come in all directions. And the other thing is too, you can see the crystallography, they're rhombohedral. They're monoclinic rhombohedral, which means they have 4 sides, but 2 of the sides are angled.
Wow. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, so they look like sharks. They look like triangles, especially at the base.
Wow, that's just incredible.
I mean, that looks more like a piece of selenite that I would know now. But when you see how glassy and clear they are, so as they dry out, do they get more white, as it were, rather than transparent?
Well, what happens at, yes, and it's actually it's causing a deterioration of the crystals, because they're splintering and cracking and drying out as the temperature continues to become lower. Because see, once you open up the bubble, then the pocket of air from the tunnels that are cooled at 102. Yeah. It's changing the environment.
Wow.
Did you
Before
feel?
we carry on, because I think we interrupted, well, one of us, probably me. Deborah says, please, would you continue with a description on how the crystals were singing?
Yeah. Sorry, it was me who interrupted.
Oh, that's all right. No, I guess you could go with that hum. I could hear a very low hum at first. And I asked the people that I was with if they heard it, and they didn't. But I thought maybe it might have been heavy equipment, machinery, like somewhere else down at that level. I didn't know exactly what that was. But that hum is like I could hear it in overtones and subtones, but it was very low, an ultra low frequency. That was this hum that was coming. So how do I explain singing of the crystals? I can't explain that. I don't know how to scientifically explain what that means, but there's a certain magic that happens with metals and water. And it's, maybe you've heard of this before. Have you heard about how their bird songs help flourish flowers to open? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, the morning chorus. It's amazingly powerful. Yeah.
It's to help the blooms bud and then open. And I think there's something similar to that with crystals singing with the water.
And of course, the very deep frequencies, the longer the wave of sound, talking to a sound healer here, the longer the wave and the deeper it is, the more healing it is for us.
So we should talk a little bit about how these crystals came about, because it took years for them to solve the mystery. And what it was, again, was a pinch of magma that had, through plate tectonic shifts, had become pinched in between 2 of the plates, and above that was an aquifer of water. All right, so At one time, it was called the Great Inlet Sea, and it went all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to Canada, and it flooded everything. So you had the Rocky Mountains on one side, and I don't know what, maybe the Ozarks to the east, but this thing was completely flooded. Where'd all the water go?
Fire and water.
That's right. We call it water fire for sure. Ah. So that water went underground, like into a cistern. So it was a massive aquifer. Now you're talking about a pinch of magma, like under a Bunsen burner, under a crystal that's heating it. Wow. And so that's how the temperatures got so high. And then somehow, over hundreds of thousands of years, that temperature, which had to be much higher than 136 degrees or 56 degrees Celsius, was higher, it started to cool. And when it cooled, it turned the anhydrite, which is the mineral that's gypsum before water, gypsum in water. Once it dries, it becomes gypsum. So it's anhydrite and then becomes gypsum based on a temperature. And then God only knows how long it's taken those crystals to grow. The ones of the Cave of Swords probably grew faster. And so the caves of the giant crystals took much longer, up to 550,000 years.
Yeah.
And that's a very short time. Quartz crystals are millions and millions of years old. Mm. And they go together. Selenite and quartz crystal work beautifully together.
So and the properties of selenite are cleansing?
Well, they're really open up the crown chakra to receive higher dimensional awareness. It also works with the bones. It resonates to Saturn because bones and the number 8, so like infinity. Drunvalo Melchizedek has said that these crystals hold our ascension codes, and there's other people as well. Right. They hold a lot of information.
So is that information held in a dimensional lock, like the quartz crystals when you and I met in Arkansas, and we were there to release that dimensional lock from the ancient Atlantean crystals?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you see it working the same with the selenite giants?
Maybe. I think there's been maybe. I think what has happened is that many crystals and these fields have been usurped of their sovereignty. They have been hijacked and used for purposes of a frequency net, again, to make us believe that we have no outside contact, that we live in a third dimension. And now this is all changing, huh? Would you agree?
Wholeheartedly.
Tell us more.
I don't want to, again, this is my first Facebook ever in 18 years, and it'll probably be my very last one. So,
all of this is your personal perspective as well. It's not written as.
No, this is just, and I'm sure many people are right there with us. What did I see on your Facebook page? Like, I don't know how many members you have of Time of the Sixth Sun. It was really exciting. It's a lot of people.
Over 40,000 on our main page. Yeah,
it's really wonderful. Well, this is part of the amnesia that we're waking up from, this mind swipe that was intentionally done to the human race, the divine, angelic human beings that rightfully had their sovereignty taken away from them and became indebted slaves, not just current time, but a forbidden ancient past. And I think many of us we're deep diving into finding more information. That's all I'm going to say, everybody. You just got to do your homework. You got to do your own research.
We've actually got a chat that wants to talk about this, and it's like one of those subjects of do we go there or do we not? We sign that birth certificate, the fact that all of our names are written in capital letters, which is dog Latin, which actually means that vessel is deceased, which is why all of our names, all of our passports, all of our driving license are written in capital letters. That is a rabbit hole that we could go down, but we're not sure whether we go down there yet.
Exactly. The birthing vessel. Yeah, it's all been hidden in plain sight, huh? All of it.
Yeah. So still got a bunch of questions for you, plus audience ones. So your pineal gland.
Yeah, let's get to the audience too. So just pull one out.
We will.
Okay.
As Teo sees them, he'll bring them up.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about our pineal gland because it's kind of known that for us, not maybe First Nations people so much or Aborigines, but the pineal gland, when we become teenagers, starts to calcify like a crystal. But this is our, for the Aboriginals who run the dream time, etc., it doesn't crystallize in the same way. Genetically, it's different. So did you feel that in any way activated when you were in the cave with the crystals?
I think what happened was, yes, I do. All I know is that when we returned to the tunnels and then was escorted back to the top, I had a horrible headache. This headache was complete dehydration.
Yeah.
All right. And heat prostration. And when I got back in the pickup truck and we bumped along this Mexican dirt roads out of Naica back into the town of Delicias, I just remember feeling so bad and a horrible migraine that I just turned it over to Spirit. I said, look, you got to help me, please, my higher self. I need a healing. Because I was aware and awake in 2000, not like I am today. But I remember passing out. Think of this. This is the truck's door, and I'm leaning against the window, and my head hurts so bad, and all the bumps, and I'm like this, hitting all the bumps of this, and I completely pass out. And I don't know how long it must have been. I don't know, 5, 10 minutes, 15. But when I woke up, my brain was completely gone. Wow. And it was, all right, I just went, wow, whatever this is, it's really big. And it did open. I see it's my crown. You say the pineal gland, but for me, I think the two things, one, the blood crystals, a very high burn, right? On fire in a way at that type of temperature, 128, your body's cooking.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of a purification going on. So I don't know how to explain all that, but yes, it just was from that minute on, my life was never the same. It was a burning desire to say, why me? Why this? What does this mean? Why is this important to planet Earth, and why now?
Yeah. So many questions around this. So many. Have you come away with something that's lasted, like something that's healed in your body, or I mean, those were serious negative ions down there. I'm absolutely positive of it.
Well, I can't explain it, and some people would defy this, but for some reason in my life, I've been blessed with extremely good health. I really have not had a challenge physically. I thank God and Goddess for that. Anything can change, of course, and so I'm humble.
You're wary.
And I'm deeply grateful. But I've been able to do my work, and I've never really had any physical challenge, other than some adrenal from pushing too hard. That's it. As you would, both of you would know, with having a documentary, it took 12 years.
But we have both had adrenal fatigue for sure. Yeah. So,
the question?
Just your experience,
Monica says, I love crystals. Many come to me and I work with me, and I'm not sure we're supposed to mine them. I would like to ask Leela about her opinion on mining crystals.
Okay, so this is going to get into a little more of my professional career as a graduate gemologist, and I have certainly been to a few mines, and I've also been, and I've seen and witnessed the supply chain, right, from mining to distribution, manufacturing to the retail trade. And I'm really on the fence about this. I think we still have a lot of mining practices that are not really taking in consideration of the human beings that are doing it. We have a money system that that creates such a poverty and scarcity. We have people that do backbreaking work that dishonors the human and their greed. Everybody has to make a profit. So just think about it, from the mine right down to the person who buys those little crystals. Everybody in that chain has to make a profit.
Yeah.
So I'm unhappy about that. I don't know how to stop it because there's some good in that. There's problems with silicosis, like when we take crystals, quartz crystals, and they come in every different color, and there's all kinds, there's carnelian and chalcedony and all these different types, and then they get faceted and fashioned into cabochons. And so what happens is these lay people use these stone cutting, and then the crystals, they breathe in that into their lungs, and they eventually die from it. It clogs up the pores and to the respiration. So silicosis is a major issue. Now that's just the human side. And then on the Mother Earth side, I call it womb punching. It's like the greed to dig deeper and just trash it. So we have a lot of lessons to learn because we're still using this money system, and as a measuring stick for greed and scarcity and wealth.
Yeah. So, Leela, the sad news is, for most people who won't know this, is the mining companies have to constantly pump when they're mining. They're pumping water out, correct?
They have to for that.
At a huge cost. Yeah. And the mining company couldn't afford it, and those caves have flooded.
Okay, let me tell you why they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because it's all based on an artificial value of supply and demand of the silver. The values of silver are suppressed, yeah?
Yeah.
So I believe that precious metals, their value is much higher. And so when the yield, the monetary yield is so low, they can't really afford to run generators that pump out, I forgot how many, 22 Olympic-sized swimming pools a day of water, and then they pump it out, and it's really highly alkalized water out into the fields. And if you look at a Google map above Naica, you can see it's all green, but at a very high price. I think that was about 15 years ago, the ticket was about $500,000 US per month.
Wow.
To run those turbines.
Because I was thinking, the importance of these crystal caverns, I would have thought that it would have been recognized as a World Heritage Site for our future generations and for future research. Why wouldn't it have been? Why did they allow it to flood? Why wasn't there money made available? I just find that extraordinary.
There were many researchers and scientists who wanted that to be a preservation. But Nikki, it's like anything, follow the money. It's always about the money.
Always, yeah.
Always.
I mean, I just have to say to you, had you not had that experience and written that book and your team taken those photographs, that would have been lost. That is the legacy, you guys leave. And that's an extraordinary feat, in my opinion.
Thank you. Here's the thing. We're nothing special. NASA went in there, Discovery Channel. There's other groups that explored it, but we were the first.
Yeah.
And that says something about that 7 years earlier than anybody else.
And the other thing is women, I know in Australia, women are considered bad luck going underground into the mines.
You're so smart. We were. That's exactly right. They didn't really want the women. We were considered bad luck. Gosh. You got any questions, Teo?
Well, I have, but I'd like to jump in so that we're answering the questions from our lovely friends from around the world. Anne says, where should we use selenite at home and clear quartz, and what properties for what chakra? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So selenite's a very soft crystal. It's a like on the Mohs scale of hardness is like less than 2. So it's almost like talcum powder. It's one grade above talcum powder. You can actually scratch it. And yet it can hold like striations of pure white light, an amazing crystal. Using it at home, I have it all over the place. Let's see if you can see my big piece over here.
Yeah.
Can you see it with the wand as well?
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Because I do body work, I use the selenite crystal underneath my bed.
Yeah, me too.
I have it next to my bed for inspiration. Always have a notebook next to me. It's all over the grounds and it's in my home, so that it's really creating a real purified field, I think, of because it's out of water. If there ever was a crystal that was made out of water, it's selenite. Working with quartz crystal, the difference is quartz crystal is used. It contains thought programs, and so which means is that if you hold the quartz crystal in your hand, whatever your thoughts that you're thinking, you're actually embedding it into that crystal. So this is part of crystal mechanics on quartz. So that's why we always need to cleanse our quartz crystals. You can actually use it if you wanted to do healing work. You could hold that quartz crystal in your hand and bring in, say a prayer, bring in an intention of perfect health. So you're working on somebody or even yourself in your heart. Then as you imagine that, it imbues the quartz crystal with that thought program, and actually through the terminated point works in imbuing your body with those higher frequencies, that higher intention. Selenite's different. Selenite is like a room, an air cleaner. It's perpetuated white light, so it never holds a program. So what it does is it just continues pumping out. Like, I love what you say, Nikki, about an ionized field. It just continues to pump out white light. You cannot embed a program in those crystals. It's constantly moving with the selenite, but the quartz will hold a program. Yeah. So if you ever get yourself up, and if you buy a crystal, or if you have one that you haven't cleared in a long time, think about it. It just absorbs all your thoughts. And so you're watching scary, horrible movies on TV, everything gets embedded. So it's really important you take that crystal out into the sunshine, put it in a crystal bowl with purified water and salt, and let it sit in a sun and moon cycle for whether it's a full moon or a new moon, and then the sun the next day. That will clear your quartz crystals of any thought programs that have been embedded in it. I hope that answers the question.
So I guess with the virus, creating our environment is very important. I've always slept with an ionizer and I sleep brilliantly at night. But I've actually just bought a big one for my office and my home downstairs. And they're really not expensive at all. And so I imagine with lots of selenite around as well, to keep things flowing and moving, cleansing like that, could be a good thing.
Yes.
In case people don't want to use drugs or put loads of stuff inside them. So I remember when we were in Arkansas with Tiburon, who we hope to have on the show in the future, I remember there was a young couple there, if you remember, who came in their pickup truck, and they have a mine. They had bought a mine. Was it very near Naica Caves? And they brought with them that big slab. So I'm talking like the seat of a big butt. And we sat it down as a bench, and we all experienced sitting on it.
That's right. That's the first time I met them.
It was extraordinary. I felt my tailbone being pulled down into the crystal seat. It was really extraordinary feeling.
That's right.
Do you? I mean, I imagine to have a crystal. My ambition is to have a quartz crystal table, but I guess it has to stay in the ground, so maybe that can remain a fantasy. But yeah, to have a pure crystal bed to lie on, my God.
Not necessarily. And Nikki, why don't you make a trip to come maybe next year in 2021 to Tucson? You'd be surprised. You might find something out there.
That's where our lovely Ukwala is. And yeah, I've got a few friends in Tucson and the amazing gem show there.
That's correct.
Mm. So you're saying there are big pieces like that, pure crystal beds to lie on?
Well, maybe shorter, but not pure. Yeah. But yes, there are deposits that are out there. There's Nova Scotia is the largest gypsum quarry in the United States or North America. Utah has selenite. Mexico, of course, New Mexico. I just saw something. He was called the Crystal Digger. A friend of mine sent, and there was I think it was back in North Carolina. There were little selenite crystals. So they can be found, and of course, Morocco is where a lot of the orange selenite comes from, and the sapphire. So this is what I love about selenite. This is our mother. Exactly. Our mother gives this to us free. This is selenite is so incredibly inexpensive to have. It's not like what's her name from Walmart, Joanne Walton, who bought a $7.5 million single generator, 2-ton quartz crystal. So those are very, very expensive, and the largest quartz crystal field in the world north of the equator is in Arkansas, Nikki. That's where we met.
Yeah.
And why those big quartz pylons, the crystal of knowledge, right? The blue crystal of knowledge and the green crystal of healing were in Arkansas that we were to activate. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Absolutely, of course I do. And for people who don't know, they say there were 15 massive crystals, these being 2 of them, which had been held in a dimensional lock for hundreds of thousands of years.
Atlantis.
And that we were reactivating them as groups, going around the world to the various sites where they're held. And that's been part of the work of Tiburon.
Yeah, it was called, they were all those activations, the 888, the 999, the 101010. Remember that up until December 21st. Yep. But remember the way he described it, he called it a seed farm. So that in order to grow these amazing crystals that were used in various cycles of Atlantis, they had a seed farm in the Arkansas area. And that's where these crystals were sequestered away when Atlantis went under the sea.
Yeah.
Let's jump to an Atlantis question here. Joanna says, what do you think about the crystal skulls and the Atlantean use of crystals?
Well, hi, Joanna. Okay, let me look at this. Let me see. Crystal skulls. Well. I think that crystal skulls, this again comes into my professional status of this. I think a lot of the crystal skulls, Joanna, if you're talking about natural crystal skulls, there's only 2 that have been authenticated that they don't know if they're human or not. And that was the Michael Mitchell Hedges skull that was found in Mexico.
Is that Max?
And Max was the other one.
Okay.
So Max the crystal skull, and that was taken to the Smithsonian, and I think somewhere in London as well. And they found 5 different crystal matrices that there's no way that a machine tool would not have exploded that crystal, because it was when you have those kind of inclusions in it, it weakens the material, so it makes it prone to explode, to crack and fall apart. Yeah. So those are the only 2 skulls that they don't know for sure if they're human or not. All the rest, pretty much machine made. Now that doesn't mean they don't have a use. I think that's all I really want to say about that. I think, again, as I said earlier, think about Quartz Crystal holding a program. So if you have someone who has dark intentions, they can certainly embed those into a crystal skull and maybe use it in a group of meditation, hijack the group. I mean, it's energetics. Everything's energy. So be very discerning about crystal skulls and who's trying to sell it to you and why do you think you need it? Because all the power is inside you anyway. You don't need a little crystal skull to give you more power.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about these ancient crystals, Leela, as being part of our cellular memory. Of course, that makes sense, and are therefore a living legacy, albeit underwater now, from our galactic interstellar families. So do you believe that a lot of these massive crystal beds were grown from seed, and that they actually had been farmed and developed maybe off planet and had come on? Is there talk of that at all?
No. What I get is that it's my theory that there's many more crystal clusters and that they serve a network. They created a network. And this network was actually something that could have been created by the Syrians, and maybe with the alliance of the Pleiadians. And if we have any kind of knowledge or history of this, and of course, this again is to, if anybody heard me in the science community talk about this, they say I was a complete nut job. But speaking
we don't think you are.
Speaking of the metaphysical and to the star seeds, think of this as when this Earth was in its seeding, its planetary seeding of humanity, and we've had several cycles of this, that these crystals were actually transmitting and receiving data. So maybe they were reporting back about the stabilization of humanity's growth on planet Earth. This is what I feel it was doing. It was something that was embedded, implanted, it grew, but it held information so that it could be retrieved, extracted, assimilated about what was happening with the seeding on Earth. That's what I think they were.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, if you've got the Earth grid and you've got the star system as well, the Earth grid around the Earth, it makes sense on the inner Earth to also have a grid that's transmitting and amplifying information.
Oh, I think humanity is watched very closely in our growth.
Yeah. As little crystal seeds that we are.
Little star seeds.
I want to on something because I realise that we haven't got so long to go unless we're going to go over a little bit, which is possible. But a lot of your research in these later years now, Leela, have been about in 2017. So correct me if I've just been researching in the last couple of days. Strange microbes have been found inside water bubbles. And when they have been looked at by scientists, they were sort of resulting in weird alien life forms that have never been found on this planet before.
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I kind of wanted to go there.
I do too, because it's actually, this is the evolution of this whole journey anyway. Yes. And I find it very fascinating. So in 2017, April of 2017, I had the good fortune of connecting with Dr. Penelope Boston. She is the director of astrobiology. Now, astrobiology is a newly emerging science of the study of microbes in hostile environments.
Wow.
It's really incredible. And we have some young people that are looking and wanting to know what our purpose is, which we know what our purpose is. But if you want something fun to do for a profession, is to learn something about astrobiology. I think the field is wide open. Dr. Boston is in charge of 650 other astrobiologists. She's the director of NASA. And I spent 2 hours with her at Moffett Field in Mountain View, California, and interviewed her, as she is the only other woman that I know that went into the crystal caves, and she did the documentary for National Geographic in 2009. No, it was 2008 and 2010, 2 documentaries. And I would highly recommend your audience looking for those on YouTube. I think you can find them.
Okay.
Into the Lost Crystals and the Crystal Caves or something like that. The 2 different.
Okay.
So Dr. Boston was telling me she had presented her research. It's not peer reviewed. And the paper has not been published, but their team had taken fluid inclusions in this water. And when they looked at it, realized that they were finding alien life, which means they have a DNA for all the microbes on this planet. Everything's cataloged, as we know, everything. And it didn't come close to matching anything on Earth. Maybe less than 10% of anything remotely close to any kind of microbe here on planet Earth. So they realized that these alien microbes were existing on manganese, so on chemicals. It's called chemosynthesis. So they were living off the chemicals, but really had no food source, because like everything, even a microbe eats something and it poops it out. You would find evidence of that. But they sustained life for over 50 to 60,000 years inside these crystals, which means, we have something that knows how to survive in extreme environments. So if they stayed alive for 60,000 years.
Amazing.
So you can imagine, so here's this magma that's heating this water. It ebbs and, flows. And somehow 60,000 years ago, these little microbes got inside these crystals to learn how to survive. Now, what this tells us is another thing. Early on, I think in 2008, they found microbes from South Africa in the crystal caves, in the waters at the lowest depth of the mine.
Wow.
So how did South African microbes come into Naica?
Wow.
Very interesting. So
sounds like a pole shift to me.
Exactly. Not only that, they also found Stan Lortzen, I think his name is. He was on the team, a NASA team. They found pollen inside the crystals, tree pollen that was over 30,000 years old. So we know at one time in the scruffy area that you described initially was covered with a forest. I'm getting these visions of these things. So how did alien microbes decide to exist? Very intelligent creatures, obviously, to exist and stay alive for this long. Tells us that, okay, so we could have pole shift, or did we have a comet that hit from, and we know that comet is ice and water. It's water that turns ice. So maybe from other planets in our solar system or outside of our solar system came in that could have impacted the Earth. And, at one time, we do know this planet there was nothing but water. There was no land masses. It wasn't until much later.
So was it just a ball of water held by gravity in some way?
Yes, it was.
Originally. I didn't realize that. I always thought there was bedrock there.
No, there was a core, because all planets have a core, but it was all water. And then catastrophic events that had happened, and the water was shifted like a pole shift. It's something, and all of a sudden, then some of the mountain ranges that was underneath started to show through.
Okay. Wow. I have a small crystal upstairs, and it has a bubble in it. And when you tip the crystal up that way or that way, the bubble moves up and down the crystal. So I have some alien DNA in there, probably.
You might have that, and it's called, in the quartz crystal, it's called an anhydro. But most scientists just call it an anhydro, ENHYDRO. But most scientists, they just call it fluid inclusions.
Okay.
I love this. It's fascinating. I want to show the pictures again. We've had so many people join us since we started. I mean, there's well over 350 people watching us now across YouTube.
Hi, everybody. I want to say welcome. I hope you love crystals and you're enjoying this fascinating dialogue with Teo.
Tagging other people saying, this is so fascinating. Come watch this live interview. So let's show Leela in these caves. So this is back in 2001. Is that right, Leela?
January 23rd, 2001.
Yeah. So, and she was saying it's 128 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 53 degrees centigrade.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
And that's selenite.
So as we're looking at this picture, Teo, I just want your viewers to see where the reflection is of the camera. You see that? This is completely pitch black. There's nothing in here except the flash of a camera bulb. that illuminates this up. This gives you some idea of the striations and how the light in, filaments, right? How they reflect back the light.
Yeah.
See, and then you can see the etching on the lower pylon below my knee there.
Yeah. Amazing.
Now we'll jump to the next one.
Okay, so the one on the right is the first one I went into. This is the one that I stayed 42 minutes. You can see the battery pack and all the humidity and the sweat. The one on the left is the Cave of Crystal Giants. This is the one we went into. I went into this one at 5 minutes at a time. That's all I could stand. And most of the images came out with a towel covering my mouth because my eyeballs were searing hot and I could barely breathe.
Wow.
But look at you. Tell me that these aren't transmitters and receivers of data, of information.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, Nikki?
Massive antennae. Gosh,
Mm-hmm.
right under our feet.
Yes,
And let's
everybody.
jump to this one.
Pardon me, Teo?
I've just jumped to the third slide.
Yeah.
Okay, again, so both of these images are just of the Cave of Dreams. This was the first cave we entered to, and you can see all the shattered ones. See all the crystals because they punched the hole in there below this person's feet. And this was I want to see to the one to the left. Do you see all the triangles at the top? Look towards the roof.
Yep.
See that? All these codes vary, and the one I'm touching is a very rare. Believe it or not, it's about the size of a small Volkswagen car.
Wow.
Amazing.
And just hanging by the roof.
I think we just have to have you back to take a deeper dive. I want to go deeper.
Leela, how do you mind if I ask how tall are you so we can get an idea of the size of these things?
Yes, I'm 5'6".
You're 5'6". Okay. So what's that, about 160 centimeters roughly, I would think.
Okay.
Wow. I mean, they are incredible.
Can you, and for people that ask, you can see you just feel like there's a presence in there. I didn't know there were alien microbes, but I'm sure there's more. There's more than just alien microbes. I really believe.
Just the clairsentience.
Yes, wow. The love.
Yeah,
it feels like love to me. Born of fire, water.
Astonishing.
And you'll carry that with you for the rest of your life, and so will all of us who read your amazing book. Can you hold your book up for us, darling?
I so appreciate this.
Yeah.
Hold on.
We appreciate you. Hold on to your hand.
Okay, here we go. So last year I translated this into Spanish.
Bring it up into the camera for a moment.
There you go.
I'm going to put a link to it too here because I found it on goodreads.com where then it shows you different places you can purchase it from because I don't like putting up the Amazon.
The obvious.
The obvious one. But,
mind you, the obvious serves us still.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But if there's other things we can get it through without promoting like that, then I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
Okay, please do. It's I do have distribution rights all over the planet, so it'll be shipped anywhere. With the first one, we don't want to discuss, but you can find it there. It's also in Spanish, and it's also the Spanish one. I did that as a legacy for the people in Mexico because this really is their amazing starseed legacy. And I did it on Kindle so that they can have an opportunity if they can't buy the book. And I don't know what technology is like for most of Mexico. It's not very good, but someday they'll have an opportunity.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Wow, it's an hour and a half like that.
We're coming up to it. It does. It just goes so fast. But there's so much more really to talk about. I'd like to do another, maybe have you back and we start to talk about the codes, the coding.
Maybe. Let's take one more question. Do we have one more question from your wonderful audience?
Hold on. Let me just jump in. I tell you what I would love to show because I think a lot of people would love to know where this is. So I'm just going to do this for 30 seconds.
Do the map? Yes.
This is going to look weird. Just bear with me till I switch windows here. So this is where the caves are. So if you're wondering where they are in the world,
Great.
so that you can see you've got Mexico and the United States. And if I zoom right into that red mark there,
What's on tear?
you can see there that is it's marked down as the Cave of Crystals. So if you want to go onto Google Maps later and see,
I can't see anything.
that is Naica.
Okay, there's nothing showing on mine, but
Oh, is there not? Okay.
mm-mm.
All right. Well, I'll stop sharing, but
Okay.
you can see it, yeah?
I saw it.
You can see it. Okay, that's all right. That's
Yeah.
good.
Also,
That's good.
also, if anybody wants to write me, you can at leelasgems@yahoo.com. Yahoo.com. Leela's
Just bring your slide up again.
So yeah.
I can't
Okay.
recommend enough the book, though. The book is extraordinary, and I couldn't find it on my bookshelf. I hope no one's borrowed it. I think it's still there.
So yeah, there's the third one down is Leela's website, leelasgems.com. I've just put all the links in the comments as well. So if you go to leelasgems.com, I'm sure there's a contact us button. You can also look at the crystalgiants.com, and there's 2 groups on Facebook too, but they're all in the comments. So just have a look in the comments, and you'll see all of those. And if you're new to this and you're wondering who is Nikki and who are Teo and what is Time of the Sixth Sun, well, we've got an amazing movie where Nikki spent so many years traveling to over 16 different countries.
God bless you.
Indigenous elders and thought leaders and visionary speakers, and we collated all of that into a beautiful 108-minute movie and an 8-part deep dive docu-series as well that is currently available for free. You've just got to go to timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com, put in your name and email address, and then you'll be added to the next launch. We would love if anybody's been loving these. This is our 22nd or 23rd live broadcast we've done with these amazing speakers. But our ongoing costs are like $1,500 a month just for software alone. And that's before we put any food in our fridges. So anybody that can help we would love that. And you also share these live videos with others. Wow, what an amazing time we've had. That's gone like so fast.
Boom.
So next time, I want to talk about the high-frequency light codes held in a dimensional lock within the crystals and go down that little rabbit hole.
Teo, thank you so much for your questions about the Tarahumara, and you knew about that. Nikki,
I loved it.
And your excellent questions. You really thought about things.
Thank you.
I so appreciate you're a wonderful investigator, researcher.
I always say to Luna afterwards, I say, how do you come up with all these amazing questions? I don't know how she did it in the first place.
But
that's how she birthed this amazing project. She's the most amazing interviewer of just the way her mind works. It's always coming up with these ideas and questions. I love it.
I've been interviewed many times. Oh, let me just say really quick, if anybody's interested, Prometheus Studios, who publishes or produces Ancient Aliens. How many of you know about Ancient Aliens and the Mystery of Oak Island? They have a new program called Unexplained. You'll find it on my my Facebook pages. But I've been interviewed by William Shatner as the host, and it's going to be about the giant crystals, and it'll happen in July on the History Channel. So I think you guys get the History Channel over there?
Yeah, we do. Okay. Leela, make sure you let us know when that.
Wait, what?
We're all talking at the same time. Make sure you let us know when that happens, and then we'll post it all over our group so that people know they can come and see that.
Okay, they haven't told me yet because we've gone through this COVID nonsense, and we have so much has been. They just started filming again. Our governor of California just allowed studios to start filming once again. So editing and all that is happening. So I think it's going to be in July soon.
Great.
Brilliant.
Okay. Much love to you both. Blessings and blessings to everyone.
I just want to ask you one more thing. We love to share tools with everyone. People really need tools right now for finding where they are. So maybe between you and us, you can share maybe something, a little giveaway of some information on a sheet or something like that. So we can add it to our maybe digital package so people can have access to it through that.
Okay, do you want to have a conversation after this and we can talk about it?
We can do that, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
see what it is.
Great.
All right, beautiful.
Appreciate that.
Lovely. Blessings, everyone.
Leela, you stay with us just 30 more seconds.
Okay.
We're going to end the broadcast, but we'll be with you on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. United Kingdom time, which is 12 o'clock lunchtime in the US and 3 o'clock if you're on Eastern Coast time. And we always put the times around the world because we do have a beautiful global audience. So we're being joined by Dr. Stu Jemison. Fascinating man.
Yep, he's written an amazing book, Light Seeding, and it's about taking the body back to its natural, innocent state, cellular state.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. So really looking forward to that.
Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. Yeah. So we're going to say goodnight from Leela, from Nikki and I. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you've loved this, please share it all over the place, because the more people that find out about Time of the Sixth Sun and the journey we're on to help the evolution of human consciousness, the better. Thank you very much.
Help us get this to go viral. Thank you.
Exactly.
Good night.
Blessing.